This was an exciting and unusual one. Diaz versus Pettis at welterweight for UFC 241. So that's the same card as Cormier and Miocic. And this is such an interesting choice of fight. Great for both guys. I think considering the landscape of that division, this is something really refreshing and really exciting for the fans. Obviously, the return of a Diaz brother is always going to be a cause for celebration. So fingers crossed, this is the time we actually make it happen. We see it get into that octagon and then close those cage doors. For Pettis, I think it's a brilliant move off of his fantastic win against Wonderboy. You know, he went into welterweight. No one was sure how he was going to do. In fact, people were sure how he was going to do. They didn't think he was going to do too well. They didn't think he was going to win that fight. They thought he was too small for the division, and he went in there and he shocked the world. And now, instead of just getting into the mix of that rankings, which is a muddy, dark water, welterweight is a stacked, heavy division. So to think that, you know, you want to go through and fight all those guys, instead, what he's done is he's secured himself this effectively super fight. He's making noise in this division, and we all know that as much as we'd like the rankings to be about you beat the guys in front of you and that moves you up the roster, the reality is that you need to make some noise. And I think this is a brilliant way of doing it without needing to get into all the trash talk, which we know Pettis isn't really part of. He's not into that world. He's a traditional martial artist in terms of background. He just wants to come and fight. So how can you make noise without insulting the guy across from you? Well, you set yourself up with a fight that's interesting, that's provoking, that does something a little bit different than the standard number 5 fights number 4 and the winner becomes number 3 or 2. So I think it's a great move on his part. I think it's a great place for Diaz to come back in at. He's not coming in against someone who he knows is going to trash talk him. You know, when you look at that welterweight mix and who you've got sitting there, you're obviously looking at the likes of Ben Askren, and I don't think that that's what Diaz would want to play into. I think this is a great opportunity for him. I think it'll be an interesting fight when you look at Pettis being by far the superior stand-up fighter in terms of his technicality and what he does on the feet. Diaz is very much a brawler in that instinct, but with an incredible BJJ pedigree. So depending on where the fight takes place, if they can keep it up on the feet or if it manages to go down to the ground, I think it's going to be a real interesting one to watch. The thing to keep into mind is that Diaz isn't one to take it to the ground. He has no issue if it goes there. In fact, he likes it if it goes there. But he's not really one to initiate the takedown and take it there. And the same could be said for Pettis. You know, I think this fight will take place on the feet. I can't see Pettis putting away Diaz in the same way I couldn't see him putting away Wonderboy. But Diaz is a different animal. When it comes to taking punishment, Diaz is a different animal. So I think we'll be out for an all-out war between these two guys. I think if Diaz is smart about it, he will do some mental warfare. He will try to get under the skin of Pettis. And I'm sure in terms of just his natural persona, all of that will come out in the build-up to this fight. Let's just hope the MMA gods are on our side and this one stays on the cards and keeps happening.